残酷な天使のように少年よ神話になれ。
Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 5 of the Neon Genesis Evangelion podcast for us. We have been doing this special edition of our podcast, interweaving in between all of our other ones.
Absolutely.
Our After Dark podcast, our regular podcast, our quick cast, just everything that we got going on. Because
There's a lot of casts.
Yeah, there's a lot of podcasts coming out
Yeah.
of the Drop Culture Podcast Studios. So welcome to the Drop Culture Podcast Special Edition Neon Genesis Evangelion Episode 5, titled Beyond Rei's Heart and Rei I. Now, if you've been watching with us or if you've already seen the show, you kind of know the direction of the show's going. Last episode was Shinji's long walk, pretty much, where he kind of went and found himself. He kind of enjoyed being away from the whole rigmarole of everything, you know, the whole world that he's been thrown into, everything that's gone on.
First time he's really had some time to himself other than in his room staring at his ceiling.
Correct. In one of the very first scenes of the very first episode, we get to see this character, Rei Ayanami. But we don't really get to see her that much because she's been covered in bandages. She's been kind of in and out of the show. Not really a big part of it, but we know that she is an Eva pilot.
Right.
Because she was going to take over Unit 1 when Shinji wasn't going to do it in Episode 1 and Episode 2.
Right.
They were going to reconfigure. We've seen a little bit of what happened to her in a way that they had the test, the prototype Ava Unit 0 was in the bakelite and looked like it had been gone berserk or something like that. They had the entry plug in it that was the entry terminator plug with the cross in it. And they kind of allude to a little bit of things that it might have happened before this went on. So this episode,
and we also know that she goes to school.
Correct. She's in Shinji's class.
Yeah.
She's very aloof and quiet. Aloof is not a word, but she's very distant.
Yeah.
Quiet, just keeps to herself 100%. So you don't get to really see a lot of interactions, but she's always with Gendo in almost everything that she does. So this episode is a very, very Rei-centric episode. Again, Beyond Rei's Heart and Rei I, the titles for it. So we really are expecting to see who this character is. So whenever they start off the actual show, they're 22 days before the first angel.
22 days earlier.
Yeah, 22 days earlier. So not the first angel, but 22 days earlier since the last events, since Shinji's,
correct,
kind of escape and the first two angels coming through, everything like that. All the stuff that's gone on with Toji and
pretty much everything that's happened so far has happened. This is happening before all that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we actually get to see what happened inside that test chamber, which is a pretty violent thing.
Absolutely.
Whenever they start the process like they were doing with Shinji, they show how everything's kind of, all the links are happening, everything's going together. It's actually
on a computer screen.
Correct. Yeah. So they're giving you a little bit more insight into the way that they're testing these and how these things work.
Right.
With the neural kind of links that they have. So, which is a really cool concept for it because their mind is controlling these giant mech cyborg robot things.
Right.
So again, we still don't really fully understand everything that's going on, but we get to see more and more of that.
Absolutely.
That opening part of it. Now, the test is being run by, Gendo Ikari, which is the leader of Nerve. Misato's there too, isn't she?
Correct. Misato and
Ritsuko Akagi.
Risco.
And then all the rest of the people are there. Maybe Misato, she might be there, but she's not really prominent in that first part of it.
Right.
But then that's whenever they get right to the threshold. So there's a threshold of links that they got to hit before the brain is right in the right spot to connect with the other brain of the actual Ava. And then it goes crazy where they can't do anything with it.
Right.
It's like it's going berserk in a way. So you really you see how involved everything is, and of course they got the Ava locked in.
Right.
The arms are locked. The head is kind of free for everything for the entry plug, but the body is basically stationary. It's supposed to be stationary so they can run these initial tests not that they know that the first angel is coming, but they know that something's going to happen here pretty soon.
Right.
So this is, of course, before Shinji actually gets there, everything like that. So this is their first test run inside the Eva, which, you know, you can kind of look back at the very first episode and you can kind of see why the military guys were there, because they knew already that the test possibly didn't work, that they were a little bit behind schedule on that part of it, and they were there to be the first ones to take on, and they were going to be the ones that beat the actual angel that came through.
Right.
Which, when you see after the neural links break and everything kind of goes nuts, the actual Eva breaks free.
Right.
On the inside, which is pretty, you could see the power of this fucking giant, you know, cyborg. It breaks free and it starts reaching for its head like it's going crazy.
Right.
So they allude a couple of things in there too, by basically saying it's something like maybe that there's something wrong with the pilot.
Right.
Not necessarily the actual Eva itself too. But of course, the way I see it is I see that there's a combination of both of those not really firing
being
off.
in the sync, yeah.
There's a distraction with the pilot, or there's a distraction with the Eva not wanting to accept the pilot. There's something else going on. But then you get to see their kind of safety protocols ejecting the actual the power.
Well, yeah, the Ava's punching the window or Gendo, and those guys
going
are
after him.
Yeah,
it seems like it almost seems like it's actually throwing the punches at him. It sees him and is going for him.
And all props to him. He just stands there like a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. So, you know, he knows there's extra going on with this,
Right.
which is really cool too, because there's just so many facets to this story that we still haven't even gotten close to see. That we're scratching the surface on.
Right.
They really get into it to where they eject the entry plug finally, because they cut the power, which I thought was a really cool deal. The way that whenever they cut the power of the umbilical cord, before it hits the ground, it automatically has a sensor in it that fires booster rocket kind of deals to protect that thing from really crushing everything or hurting
Right.
the entry plug or anything like that. So everything is 100% thought out on this,
Right.
which is really cool about this show too, because if that thing were to fall down and actually hit, it would cause major damage. But if you soften that blow a little bit, like a booster rocket or something in space, it's going to kind of slow that force down, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
It's a little bitty thing that you notice like that. It's pretty cool.
For sure.
Just like the way that they put the Terminator plug in there too, and it's the cross almost.
Yeah.
So nothing can get in there, no outside contamination, interference, anything like that, which is pretty neat. Because every time you see the entry plug going in anyway, they just kind of open the back of the neck, head tilts forward, and then they push it in there. So they're not actually in the head. They're actually in a weird spot in their neck, which is kind of different. That's whenever you get to see, because Gendo is still, he's poised, but yet he knows that there's something wrong with the pilot too.
Absolutely.
So whenever they eject the entry plug and it kind of falls and it flies and kind of hits everything, that's kind of the only haphazard thing that they had going on, you know? So it's going out. They injecting that bakelite in there, and it's freezing the Ava because they only have like 30 seconds of power.
Right.
It was like 30 seconds, they said, a minute of power.
Yeah, I don't remember what the number was from the earlier episode, but I think they count down from like 39 on this one.
Yeah, this one they only had a small amount of power. You know, so it wasn't like the Unit 1, which has about 5 minutes.
Right.
And 1 minute of like super reserve power. Crazy shit like that, right? So that's when Gendo actually gets down to the bottom and he's opening the plug because he's really concerned about Rei.
Right.
You can automatically tell that
This is where we find out Gendo has a heart.
Yeah, he actually has emotion for the first time in the series for anything except for getting business done like he does.
Right.
So he's straight up for it. So he grabs the entry plug and it burns him automatically, which is kind of weird that it runs so hot that it actually does like burn his hands.
Right.
But he's like, fuck it. And he backs off, his glasses fall off. He gets in there and you see all the LCL fluid kind of flow out. You know, and kind of it's so hot, the plug is so hot it actually melts his glasses in a little weird way, like bends them and cracks them and shit. And he gets into the plug, and there she is. And you don't really see the extent of her damage that she's incurred for it. But yeah, she's pretty fucked up.
But we know that she's
we already know she's pretty fucked up at that point. Right. So, which is really cool to actually for them to go back on that scene and really give you. They don't give you any of the lead up. They just give you the what's happening right there
Exactly.
as soon as they start the neural links, so they don't get into it as much.
But you already know that's part of the story you've been waiting for.
Correct.
You know, so
You've been
it's-
wanting to see it. Yeah. Which is pretty awesome. So, I mean, whenever they right after that, they're kind of they're almost they're cutting the actual Ava out of the Bakelite.
Right.
So, and that's when they have the voiceovers going on. It's Misato and Ritsuko. And they're talking about how Ayanami was the first child that was chosen by the Marduk Institute. And whenever they're trying to tell kind of where she's from, all of her history has been erased.
Right.
They have no idea where she's from. There's no family history. There's no anything for this. So again, another allusion to what's going to be happening in the future.
Right.
So you know that everybody in the class already, all the Ava pilots don't have a mom. Most of them have dads, but mom is the one thing that's the most important. But Rei's a little bit different because she has no parents whatsoever.
Right.
So you have no idea where this is from or what she's doing, which I like that little, I like the talk that they have together, Ritsuko and Misato, about, they're just kind of like, whoa, what happened? We really don't know what happened. It just reached a point where it could have been, they said that the first hypothesis is that Rei was mentally unstable at the time.
Right.
So that's where I kind of was getting that from before. It's like her mind wasn't ready for it.
Right.
Or whenever they fired up that Ava, there was something else in that Ava that was affecting her.
Right.
To make that sync not happen. So that's where it caused the berserker rage and it caused everything to happen. But then Ritsuko kind of is like, wait a minute, could it be? No, she again, it's another little bit of that foreshadowing. There's something extra. So
Right.
they're creating this kind of a mythos with the Rei character already, which is kind of cool.
Agreed.
And, Misato's like, well, what do you mean? She's like, oh, no, never mind. Kind of like,
Right.
let's let that go. So now we're back. Of course, in that last scene, we're kind of 22 days later. And then now they're back at the last battle where Shinji took on the last angel with the boys inside the
They've
entry.
got an outline of the Ava's body.
Yeah, they have the outline in the deal. They have the all the stuff that's been happening, everything like that. But the angel is actually covered.
Right.
Like they built a building around the actual angel itself instead of
Right.
the Ava. So of course the Ava's back at headquarters. They probably helicopter lifted it, back. And they're kind of looking at everything, and Ritsuko's like, "Thank you for the specimen. It's a nearly intact, full specimen, and this
Right.
is something that we really needed to understand the physiology and everything of the angels." Which is pretty cool too, because they're sitting there, and Shinji's drinking his coffee, and Misato's drinking their coffee, and they're talking about what the angels are made of.
Right.
Which is they're like, how did she describe them? Is that they share similarities with light.
Yeah.
Most of it's like sound and light is what they're mainly
Right.
comprised of.
Right.
Which is crazy because even she pulls up the code and it says 601.
601 error or analysis error.
Yeah, and they have no idea what it is, and
Right.
they're just like, "You still don't know what these are?" Yeah, no, I don't think we're ever going to really know what these are, but we know that these things are coming down for us, which is kind of crazy.
Right.
And then Shinji sees Gendo and the doctor walk by their room, and they're pulling the S2 engine out. The actual engine, whatever they're calling it an engine, but it's whatever is powering these big giant creatures,
Right. Right.
their
The
soul
angels.
or something like that,
Yeah.
not the AT field soul, but just whatever is making them,
Right.
And Gendo, which I find is really weird too, whenever he sees the scars on his hand at the time, Shinji's still wanting to know his dad as
Right.
much as possible. And then ask about how he got the scars. Oh, he got the scars from rescuing Rei
Right.
during the test experiment. But when he's talking to the people about the S2 engine, which I find is really weird, is they pull it down and it's being lowered down, and he's like, "Well, get rid of it." He tells them to get rid of it, which is one of the most important things that I think that they would be researching.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in a weird way, I know that they're not going to get rid of it. They're going to try to understand it a lot more, to kind of get back into.
That's what I would assume.
Yeah, he's getting rid of it as a show of face, but then with all the way how shady Nerve is,
Right.
they're going to keep it and they're going to figure it out. You know, they're going to figure out what's going on. Which Shinji is still just kind of like looking for acceptance, but yeah, he's with his big sister Misato, you know, pretty much.
Yeah, and I don't remember who said it, but